all the clothes that are strewn along the way, and these stories just about form a path for us to follow. Like breadcrumbs, we can follow the cloaks of the crowds on the roadways, the mocking purple cape, his bartered clothes, the torn curtain, and finally, the linen burial cloth, all the way to the tomb. All the garments and fabric are not metaphors. They're actually there, picked up and discarded and picked up again throughout the story of today. Of course, the story of today is a compression of a week's worth of drama, moving us swiftly from his arrival in Jerusalem over days of increasing conflict and anxious meals to his arrest, sham trial, and execution on a Friday. Whether today's trail is a shortcut through the week or not, the scraps of fabric are blazes, trail markers, pieces of cloth snagged and caught like evidence left behind, signaling that the story went along this way, marking the twists and turns from joy to a supper to a garden, passing through a midnight courtyard to a hill named for a skull to a tomb. In preparing earlier this season for our visit from Cole Arthur Riley, a highlight of the Lenten preaching series for me, a group of us read her memoir, This Here Flesh. In her story, she reimagines God's character in the early tale of Adam and Eve. She describes the God who made them clothing when they needed it as a seamstress. Cole isn't the first to offer this image of God as a seamstress. She did renew it for me, reminding me. In her conversations about this idea, we receive this invitation. God became a seamstress on the day the world began to die, when trauma and harm and severing and brokenness entered our reality. God became a seamstress. This image expands who you expect the divine to be, how you expect the divine to operate in the world. We arrive today to encounter another story of trauma and harm, of such deep brokenness. And we find again our clothing wrapped and woven through the tale. This time, rather than an offering of tender care from God, our clothes show us at our mercurial best and worst, celebrating with joy and creating a red carpet effect as we ecstatically throw our cloaks and coats to create a parade. Then, mocking and jeering as we find a king's costume to dress Jesus up in, like a pretend monarch with a thorny crown. And subsequently, taking the last remnants of protection from him, we strip him even of his stained and worn robe, jockeying for the best pieces. In the last shred of the story, though, we are reminded of the care and comfort that can still be offered to Jesus, even by the likes of us, and maybe even to us. Joseph bought a linen cloth, and taking down the body, wrapped it in the linen cloth and laid it in a tomb that had been hewn out of the rock. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where the body was laid. I can't picture this sequence of events happening with any roughness, only tenderness. Though Jesus was dead, surely Joseph was careful and gentle, quietly opposing the brutish treatment with kindness as he bound and wrapped the wounds. And the women watching, making plans to return to bring their spices and a clean cloth to tend the broken body. In this part of the tapestry of the story, we remember that there is an expansiveness, or there could be, of how we expect God to operate in this world and of who we expect God to be. We see just how far Jesus was willing to go to mend and repair this shredded world, to reveal love stitched into a world that almost always feels like it's unraveling. And because of that sensation, we mostly tear things apart and grab what we can. And still, there is also a similar expansiveness in who we might be. In the way that we will shout, "Hosanna," and then crucify him in our next breath. In the way that we will enact violence in our anger and fear and grief, and also the ways we will operate with courageous compassion. We see the whole of it today as we try to take in a week's worth of news in one morning. In the last lines of her poem called Kindness, Naomi Shihab Nye tells us, "You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows, and you see the size of the cloth." We catch the thread of all sorrows. And today, we see the size of the cloth. On another day, when it seems like the world is dying all around us, when we are reminded of our tendency to tear things apart, we still find the scraps of fabric marking the way. God, the divine seamstress, carefully stitching our stories together, showing us again the size of the cloth.
Heart and with all our mind, let us pray to the Lord, saying, "Lord, have mercy." For the peace from above, for the loving kindness of God, and for the salvation of our souls, let us pray to the Lord.
Lord, have mercy.
For the peace of the world, for the welfare of the Holy Church of God, and for the unity of all peoples, let us pray to the Lord.
Lord, have mercy.
For Phoebe, our bishop, and for all the clergy and people, including for the people of St. Anne's Millington in the Diocese of West Tennessee, let us pray to the Lord.
Lord, have mercy.
For our president,